Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about something personal that's been on my mind for a while now, living with a toxic sibling. I've been dealing with this for years, and I want to share my experience, how it's affected me and my family, and what it's like living with someone who refuses to take responsibility. Let's dive into it. I'm a 19-year-old guy, and honestly, life at home has been a nightmare for as long as I can remember. I have an older brother who's 21 now, and we've never really gotten along. When I say we've never gotten along, I don't just mean the usual sibling squabbles. This is far more serious. It's been going on for so long, and looking back, I realize that it's not just the petty fights that siblings have growing up. My brother's attitude and personality have been toxic for years, and it's something we've been forced to deal with, no matter how much we've tried to ignore it or rationalize it. Let me take you back to when it all started, junior high. I was just a kid, trying to figure out life, dealing with school and friends, and my brother was already exhibiting signs of aggression. It wasn't the typical big brother behavior where they mess with you now and then, but more like a constant battle of control. He was always in a bad mood, and it was clear that any small thing could set him off. Whether it was a disagreement, something he didn't like about the way we were speaking to him, or something as simple as him not getting his way, it would trigger him into a rage. I remember how it used to feel. Anytime I'd talk to him or my mom would try to set a boundary, he'd become hostile, often resorting to physical violence. It wasn't rare for him to raise his voice, and when we'd raise ours in return, the situation would escalate quickly. It was like there was this switch in his head that would flip, and suddenly, the angry outbursts would become more than just words. He'd start throwing things around, punching walls, and sometimes if things got really bad, he'd take it out on me or even our mom. I've had my fair share of bruises and bumps on my head, all because he couldn't control his temper. At first, I thought maybe it was just a phase. Maybe he was just going through something and he'd grow out of it. But that never happened. Instead, it only got worse. He seemed to become more entitled, more demanding, and less willing to take responsibility for his own actions. I'll never forget how, whenever he didn't get something he wanted, whether it was money, a new game, or some material possession, he'd have a tantrum like a little child. The way he would lash out at our mom, throw things, scream at her, or break stuff was beyond infuriating. But what was worse was that my mom, being the person she is, kind, soft-spoken, and always trying to keep the peace, would try to calm him down and give in. She'd tell him she couldn't afford it, or that we simply didn't have the money, and he'd go ballistic. The fights would get so bad that I'd step in, hoping to stop him. But I quickly learned that it wasn't that easy. Every time I tried to intervene, I became the next target. He would take out all his anger on me too. It wasn't just emotional or verbal abuse, it was physical. I remember one time, he shoved me so hard that I fell into the corner of a table, leaving me with a bruised shoulder. It was moments like these that I started to realize how dangerous his behavior was and how it wasn't going to change unless something drastic happened. As time passed, I started to see that his behavior wasn't just a phase. It was who he had become. By the time we got to high school, his aggression had turned into full-blown manipulation. He didn't care about anyone's feelings. He would throw tantrums over the smallest things, and if he didn't get exactly what he wanted, he'd act like a spoiled child, shouting, breaking things, and making our home feel like a war zone. It got to the point where my friends would visit and ask if everything was okay at home because they could hear him yelling from outside. By the time I entered college, I was hoping that things would get better, that he'd maybe grow up and get his act together. But instead, things have only worsened. He dropped out of college 3 years ago and hasn't done a single productive thing since then. All he does is sit at home, asking our mom for money, for things he doesn't need. He doesn't even try to contribute to the household in any way. If you refuse to give him what he wants, it triggers that same destructive, violent reaction. It's like a cycle that never ends. He'll throw a tantrum, start breaking things, and terrorize my mom with his outbursts. And now, it's not just the physical violence that's exhausting, it's the emotional toll. The worst part is how he constantly manipulates our mom into believing that it's her fault. He'll tell her things like, "Why did you bring me into this world if you won't take care of me?" It's like he's completely forgotten that he's a 21-year-old adult now, and that he should be taking responsibility for himself. Yet, he still expects our parents to do everything for him. The paperwork, the bills, the errands, anything that requires even the smallest amount of effort, and he's right there, making our mom do it for him. The audacity of it all is mind-blowing. He's living at home, doing nothing, and still has the nerve to complain. My dad and I are at our wits' end. We want him to leave the house and figure things out on his own. He's 21 years old, and at this point, he's just leeching off of our parents. The problem is, my mom is still hesitant. She doesn't want to kick him out. I understand where she's coming from. He's her son, and no parent wants to throw their child out into the world, even if they've messed up. But there's only so much we can take. The emotional and physical toll his behavior is having on our family is too much. We've all tried talking to him, but it always ends in more anger, more destruction, and more emotional damage. Now I'm stuck in this dilemma, unsure of what to do. It's not like I can just sit back and ignore it anymore. My brother is not just a bad influence on me, he's a bad influence on everyone in the house. And as much as I want him to get out and figure things out for himself, I also know that he's never going to change unless someone forces him to. But I don't know how to make that happen. My mom is still holding on to the hope that he'll turn things around, even though it's clear to all of us that he's not going to. The real question is, do we keep enabling him, hoping he'll change on his own, or do we finally make the hard choice and tell him to leave? How do we deal with someone who refuses to take responsibility, who continues to hurt the people who care about him, and who thinks the world owes him everything? I just don't know what the right answer is anymore. All I want is peace, but it seems like my brother won't let that happen.